Well, there we go. It wouldn't be fun and games if it wasn't, guest host and all that kind of stuff. So,
blame it on me.
I blame the heat.
Blame the heat. Blame it on me. Whatever you want.
I blame the heat. I blame the heat. So, welcome to our Tuscany Masterclass. Thank you so much for joining us. Dive in, get in, whether we're on YouTube, Facebook, Facial Book, Badger Book, or wherever we are now here. So, if you heard the bits at the beginning, my apologies. But we're going to start again. But get wine 1 in your glass. If you've drunk all of wine 1, get wine 2 in your glass. And we're going to go very, very quickly back through the history of Tuscany. So Tuscany, been around for a while. Start with the Etruscans, and then the Greeks, then the Romans, and lots and lots. So we go back about 3,000 years. And then 1716, the Duke of Tuscany decided, hey, we need to say, this is our little bit here. And that's really where Chianti was born. Chianti's had lots of different bits and pieces. It's been some absolute bulk wine and some awful stuff. Yes, Ian, it is 100% Alex's fault for being on holiday. So yes, it absolutely is. If there is a place to pass the blame, it's the person who is not in the studio. I think that's hugely important. So, it did, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And it was one of the first places in Italy to get a DOC. In Tuscany, in fact, in 1960 something, 8?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And it kept going because, in the 60s, a lot of wine was very much about quantity rather than quality. We just had the war and a lot of stuff had got, decimated. A lot of winemakers actually left the region to go and do something else. Mm-hmm. And those who persevered have turned around into making some really, really good wines. So what we're going to do, wine number 1 is, for us, it's just, if it's in your glass, we'll do this, and we can get the tasting notes up. For those of you who have been with us before, you know how to do it. Get Slido, the code's on there. Scan the QR code. For those of you who haven't been on there yet, Caroline is just about to pop it up on the screen. You can go to towtc.co.uk/taste, or you can just scan the little Slido thing that is just about to get popped up. Oh, it's going in the chat. There's so many ways you can get there. So we can get the tastings. There we are. Yes, it is the Tuscany tasting. We had basically a meltdown from the heat, and YouTube decided they didn't want to start. So now YouTube is back. We had Facebook, we had everything else, but YouTube didn't want to play. How rude of it.
I know.
So this is where we talk about IGT. We'll talk about IGT, we'll talk about DOCs, we'll talk about DOCGs and rules and regulations a little bit further, but it's important that probably people get a little bit of a drink. So this is Scantium, and this is their Viognier IGT. So a lot of time when we talk about Tuscany, it is a very red heavy area, yes?
Well, yeah, I think about 90% of all production in Tuscany is red wines. Sangiovese is the king there. And then if you look further in, as we will do later on, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, so there's a very French influence in there. And then international grape varieties in whites, Sauvignon Blanc, Viognier, being one of the great varieties that are grown there. And then Vermentino being a more indigenous grape variety. So Tuscany has sort of moved with the times and has had to. I think Jamie sort of doffed his cap to it. It's come a long way from the straw wrapped conical shaped bottles that you saw hanging from your Italian restaurants.
We have none of those.
We have none of those this evening.
It's almost disappointing.
I know. So there's no nod to history in that respect. So I think Viognier, Tuscany as a whole is an incredible area. It's incredibly hilly. The soil types are very, very suited to growing grapes, and they've been doing it for such a long time. They know exactly what they're doing. Not a great yielding area. In terms of the amount of juice that you get from so the real concentration that you get from the wines themselves is real key to this.
Absolutely. And there's going on there. Is Viognier a typical Tuscan grape? In a word,
no,
not really.
No.
Well, that's 2 words, isn't it? Not really. But what we've seen, and we'll dive into it a little bit when we talk about Super Tuscans, there was a lot of rules and regulations, and there still is a lot of rules and regulations about what grapes you can grow in what regions to be able to get your classification. But then we got into the 70s and people go, well, we could do something different. So we're seeing all over the world now. I talked to a South African.
Oh, sorry. My name's Callum. So I work with Liberty Wines, so an importer and distributor. I've known Jamie for
Too long.
Far too long. And he's somehow managed to hoodwink me into coming and doing this and then have all the technical difficulties. So I do apologise for that. But again, we apportion the blame to Alex for that. So lovely to be here. I've been a fan for a while, so it's nice to be on this side of the camera for once.
Mom, he's on TV, finally. So yeah, Fionn, what we saw is, with the Super Tuscan movement, we started to see these international grapes getting planted. So we would get, Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and these kind of things got blended together. And we're seeing all over the world. I was talking to a South African winemaker this morning who started planting Assyrtiko in Stellenbosch because the world is changing and things need to change a little bit with it. There's that balance of history and technique and knowing what things need to be. But on the other hand, there's, new techniques and new things that are happening.
I also think that, especially for someone like Tuscany, that is so ingrained with wine culture. I mean, you've got generations of families that have been making wine in the same way. You're always going to have the tearaway rebel that wants to try something new. And it's not a million miles away from France. So great varieties coming over there. I also think you've got to have a little look at phylloxera as well and planting international grape varieties there. So yeah, there's been a need to move with the times, and I think in the heart of Italy, it's the perfect place for you to experiment with this. And this is a great example of a very, very easy drinking wine that shows that it's more than Sangiovese.
Absolutely. And, anywhere else in the world, I say New World, they plant something different and it's seen as celebrating and doing something. Sometimes it gets frowned upon, but I think we've drunk lots of Viognier and we've got some great tasting notes up there. It's floral, it's herby, there's lemon, there's lime, just nice and fresh and easy drinking. I think on a day like today, I got in my car and it was up at 106 inside the car today. And I say 106 because my wife's American and changes everything.
I was going to say you're talking a completely different language to me there.
Foreign. I don't speak Italian, but I shall speak American. But yeah, lemon, apricot, a little bit of anise there. But I think I love that wine, but it's bright, it's fresh, it's easy drinking. But as we move on to the other wine, I think this next white shows a little bit how we don't just have to be light, fresh, easy drinking, and we can have, things that have a little bit more kind of like technical nous about them, if that makes sense.
I think probably now is the time to say that you can play Tuscany Evening Bingo with Jamie and I. If Jamie hasn't mentioned before, we enjoyed a very nice trip to Vinitaly in Verona.
Working trip.
A wine educational holiday.
I like that. I'm using that phrase forever.
Shall we say? Where we tasted a fair bit of wine.
More than one, less than 1,000.
Maybe less, just less than 1,000. So these are one of the wines that Jamie discovered, and I've known for a while. So great to be presenting it to you. So this is a Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc, again, not something you'd really think about when you talk about Tuscany. But this is made by one of the great producers in Tuscany. It's a guy called Giovanni Manetti. He bought this estate in 1968, so he's had it for a while. His family have been in Tuscany for centuries, making terracotta.
As you do.
Very Italian.
It's kind of a change of change of scene, isn't it? Terracotta to
wine.
Unless you put the wine in terracotta.
There we go. Beautifully segued. It's almost like we practiced.
We really didn't.
Well, we really didn't. Absolutely not. So Giovanni, he's getting on a bit now. So he's passing it on to his sons and his daughters, who are taking the mantle of the winemaking here. It's a 99 hectare site. So if you think, everyone know what a hectare is, about 2.5 acres. So it gives you an idea of the size of it.
He does maths, geography, field sizes. Wow.
There you go.
Wow. You can come back.
But 95% of what they grow is red wine. So again, it's going back to Tuscany being a red wine producing region. So they
absolutely. So I'm just going to pop on to Chris's point here about a taste. Sauvignon Blanc for me, like people talk about terroir a lot, and generally that means it tastes like some mud somewhere. But Sauvignon Blanc for me is one of the grapes that, if you want to taste a wine and be able to pick which country it comes from, Sauvignon Blanc, I think, is the grape that does that. That you can, if you line up 5 Sauvignon Blancs, you can go, okay, this is Sancerre, this is Stellenbosch, this is Marlborough, this is it. And I'm not saying it's quite easy, but they have very distinctive characteristics. This, once again, has a very distinctive characteristic, A, because of where it comes from, but B, because of the winemaking technique. And before anyone beats me over the head with a stick because they know one winemaker who does this, absolutely there is. But the majority of Sauvignon Blancs are done in stainless steel barrels, and they're after this bright, fresh, vibrant style. We start to see a couple of people who are putting some and doing some barrel aged, so you get that little bit of richness about it. But I don't know many people doing it in amphora.
So it's most of it is stainless steel, so very classical winemaking. But then amphora, so these big clay pots that you see. What that does is when it's fermenting, it's moving the wine around. So you've got this contact with the skins, you've got the contact with the yeast cells in there. So it gives you a little bit of texture. And then 10% of it is also fermented in untoasted tonneau, so big French oak barrels. So again, you're not really getting that wood influence. What it's doing is letting a little bit of oxygen come in contact with the wine, softens down some of that really, really harsh acidity that you can get from Sauvignon Blanc. But still has those nice sort of tropical notes to it. And I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful example of something that isn't from New Zealand.
It is. And it's sometimes people, tar a grape with the same brush. Oh, I don't like Chardonnay, I don't like Sauvignon Blanc, I don't like XYZ. There's so many different styles of great grapes around. And, Fontodi was, once again, a lot of these wineries, a lot of these winemakers were new to me when I went out on this trip. But we were recommended that get up early and go and do Fontodi, because once it gets a little bit later in the day, the crowds at Fontodi go all the way back, because amazing wine, very popular, and they make some phenomenal wines from affordable to
super expensive. I mean, to my mind, they make some of the best super Tuscans in the world in Flatch, as we call it, to our friends. We've known Giovanni for many, many years. So Flaccinello, it's super Tuscan. If you're feeling a little bit flush, find out a bottle of Flaccinello. You will not be disappointed. But that's their super Tuscan Cabernet Merlot.
Is that your upsell that I need to bring some in here so people can buy it? I like that. It's always selling. Always selling.
You can take the boy out. How are people enjoying this?
Well, we can have a little look at the tasting notes. Let's pop the tasting notes up. So we've got peach, we've got candy rings, we've got April. Yeah, there is a lot of that. Those kind of stone fruits, but it does have that citrusiness and that almost tartness, which it's really weird. In wine, I enjoy grapefruit, but grapefruit myself, I absolutely hate. I cannot stand grapefruit.
Which is so bitter.
Which makes it an easy tasting note, because with wine, and I think when we talk about wine tasting notes, sometimes when there's something that you just enjoy, that it's harder to pick out because it's something you're familiar with. When it's something you don't like, it's like, God, that reminds me of. But then as part of it, it all goes really well. So yeah, you've got that grassiness, you've got these apricot, and it is these classic Sauvignon Blanc tasting notes, but it's absolutely beautiful.
I think it's a little bit more rounded and a little bit more refined. So I think, we talk about New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc as being the most drunk white wine in the United Kingdom after Prosecco by quite some distance. But I just giving you a different option and showing how different winemaking techniques and different parts of the world that you wouldn't necessarily expect. It's important to say that this is in the heart of Chianti Classico as well.
Absolutely. So what we've got, when we talk about Chianti, there's a, and we'll talk a little bit more because we go back to Chianti, but there's Chianti, which is a region, and then there's Chianti Classico, which is a different region. So within Chianti, you've got some sub-regions which are all named after the hills and the towns around it. And then when you look at the area and you go to Classico, what you look at is, and wherever you go in Italy and there's a Classico, it's generally the historic center of the town. There's usually a church or something popped on the top of it.
Yeah.
And it's the best, southeast. I've got to do geography. The southeast facing slopes, which give you the best ripeness, the best grapes, so the best quality. So your Classico is generally that historic center that's always been there. And when we jump around the town, when we were, God, it's the Vin Italy drinking game. You said Vin Italy. we went up to Suave and went to this winery called Pirapan. While I'm telling this story, let's get wine number 3 in the glass, because otherwise people get very bored of me. I get much more interesting after wine number 3 is what they've said. But what was interesting is it's this walled city with this castle at the top, and there's a castle, there's walls. Outside the walls, lots of people, lots of houses, and inside the walls, all the grapes. So does that mean that it's more important to protect the grapes than the people in times of war?
100%.
Oh, there we are. So there we are. This is what we have learnt here. This is
what sort of question is that, Jamie? We work in the trade. The grapes are far more important than the people that make it. Pick it. Sorry, I should say.
Wow. He's you know you can't take that back. That's on YouTube.
I know. Well, no, they're speaking to winemakers, and they say with stuff like this that they are artists, and you can't paint a beautiful picture without good paint.
I want to pop in. I love John's comment there. It's got this roundness from the amphora, but Fume is generally an oak aged Sauvignon, because you've got Sancerre on one side, Fume, you do see more of that oak and more of that depth of character. So I can see why that's a little bit. I see your point.
Soil types as well are very, very different. You get that minerality really, really strong from Pouilly Fume. This is more about the generous, the heat, the Tuscan heat. I mean, Christ, we felt it today, haven't we?
What, the Tuscan heat?
The Tuscan heat. It feels like it's been. It feels like Tuscan heat. That sort of humidity. So you're getting that slightly more sort of more opulent style of wine, slightly more rounded, a bit more sort of, I don't know, generous, shall we say, than that sort of austere, linear,
just mineral acid catches you there, makes your eyes water a little bit and go, oh, holy moly. Absolutely. But the whites are great. I love the whites. But when you go to Tuscany, we talk about reds.
This is what it's all about.
This is Petra, and if we've got, I don't know where Caroline is, we probably have a little picture of Petra, depending where you're at. It's that one, yeah. So it's just beautiful. You just want to go there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Super Tuscan, and then Callum's going to talk a little bit about the wine and Petra. So Super Tuscans came around in the 70s because you had to be a Chianti or some other region around there. You had to be at least a certain percentage of Sangiovese, and that was king, and that's all you had to do.
It's about 80%.
About 80%, depending on
where you were. Yeah,
exactly, and that's what I said. Depending on your region, but hey, you jump in and share. You jump in and share. That's what you're here for. You're not going to come back, are you? But what happened is, there was a big boom from Bordeaux. Everybody loved Bordeaux. Bordeaux was commanded the highest prices around the world, and basically a lot of Italians thought, I'd like a bit of that done. So this Sangiovese that isn't really doing much commercially for us, making wonderful wines, but it's not a global commercial kind of thing. Let's bring some other things that we can drop in the blend. So we started seeing Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and other international varieties come over to make these wines. And because they didn't fit the DOC or the DOCG rules, they weren't allowed to be anything more than a table wine, regardless of their quality. And some of the most expensive wines in all of Italy now are these Super Tuscans. Some of them still sit as an IGT, which is your Indication Geographica Tipica, which is your typical style of the land. Some of them have managed to weasel their way into a little bit of a DOC, so they can be a little step up. No name shall be mentioned here.
No. Bulgari, I think, is the wine.
This is a wine called Hevel by Petra. These guys are really, really famous for their sparkling wine, and maybe one of the best sparkling wines in all of Italy from Franciacorta. But this is their Tuscan project. So I'm going to hand over to you while I taste.
So yeah, it's the Moretti family. Vittorio with his daughter Francesca in the mid-90s. They're an incredibly wealthy family. So like Jamie said, they're from Franciacorta, so in the north of Italy. He made his money in construction. His wife's an interior designer, and decided that they wanted an estate in Tuscany. So Maremma, specifically, which is, if you think sort of as far south as you can get out on the coast, it's almost like a peninsula, Maremma. Very, very famous for rosés, white wines. So they've took on the services of this guy called Attila Scianza, who is this incredibly famous viticulturalist who basically wandered around Maremma and said, this is where you should buy, this is where you should plant your grapes. And then because money, again, is no object, they got a very, very famous Swiss architect to come and build that beautiful winery that you saw a picture of earlier. The vineyards surround it. And I mean, they practice biodynamically. They get the Merlot to face the sea because they think it gives minerality to it and a bit of freshness, but always on a slope. The Cabernet Sauvignon is in the flat, so it gives you texture. And they grow a little bit of Sangiovese as well. So it is classified as an IGT, but when you taste it, I think it offers far more than people would expect from, well, what is ostensibly a table wine.
Absolutely, and I think that there was a comment a little bit further up about. Oh yes, we have. There's a call for a map of the.
We do.
We have one of these.
This
That one. There we are. So what you've got is, I'm blind, so I can't see. So you've got Chianti right in the middle. You go a little bit south, and you've got Montalcino there. And obviously, with Chianti, you've got that big region. I'm pointing at a map on the screen in front of me, which means nothing to you guys because that doesn't work because it should be there. And then you've got the Chianti Classico in the middle, and then the rest of Chianti around it. So yeah, that should give you a thing. And then in the bottom left, you can kind of see the map of Italy and where Tuscany is. So we're in central Italy, but we're kind of northwest. We're below Liguria. We're below the Piedmonte region. But we've got there's just this kind of range of wines because we go from coastal and we can have that, and then we come in and it's very mountainous as you come through, and then on the east we end up in Emilia Romagna, and to the south we kind of end up in Lazio. So that's kind of where you are regionally wise.
So Maremma, just to give you a point of where we are, there is that pink area, sort of that almost like peninsula that's sticking out. Sorry, again, I'm pointing at the screen, which means
nothing
to anyone either. Looks like I'm pointing at people directly.
Yes, you and your peninsula.
Absolutely. So that's Maremma. So you can see you're getting that sort of coastal influence there, which I think gives you that nice acidity to the wine as well, but it's incredibly generous. So it's aged in French oak barrels as well. So you get that little bit of toastiness there, but nothing too overbearing.
Absolutely. So we've been running around getting ourselves sorted. I don't think we've done too much snack chat. So questions is A, what is anyone eating at home with this? But B, what are you eating with this?
I was a former chef, so
you should have bought something.
I should have bought something to eat. I'm sorry. But I think if you think about what they eat in the region, it will pair with the wine. So you come to Tuscany, this is sort of hearty meat-based dishes, tomato sauce-based blend sauces. So you can tell there's acidity in this, which will cut through the acidity with ones. So they do this amazing dish with guanciale, which is cured pork cheek, and have that with a tomato sauce, almost like pancetta. That is absolutely perfect with something like this. When I went and visited the estate, there may be a couple of those. That's exactly what they serve with fresh made egg pasta.
But you look what the people have got at home. We've got Tuscan salami and Serious Pig snacking cheese.
Perfect.
We've got some smoked cured meat. We've got bread and olive oil is a fantastic thing just to be able to taste and go from there.
Absolutely.
And I think we talk about this a lot. We do 6 wines back to back, and the tasting and the tasting notes and being excited about this. But we've got to pick when we would have these wines in real life. What's the occasion? And wine isn't just about what's in the bottle. It's about the people you share it with, the occasion you're having, the food you're having, and how that all comes together. So I think it's kind of important that we make sure we have a little bit of biltong.
Perfect.
I'm going to dial back to I did a tasting with the South African night. That's all we talked about was biltong. It was fantastic.
Nice.
So
the red cherry, chocolate, tobacco, red plum, black cherries. Again, the high acidity that people are talking about there, I think is perfect with cheese, especially because you need something to cut through that richness, that fattiness.
Absolutely. Just jumping back to the comment about climate. Yeah, we're further south, so we are generally a little bit warmer than Bordeaux. once again, if you're coastal, you can be a bit cooler with the breeze. But you go further inland, you're definitely warmer than Bordeaux, and you're going to have more peaks and troughs because of the hilliness. Bordeaux, a lot of the time, is fairly consistent. It's difficult in this day and age because the weather changes on a daily basis, and everything you learned 10 years ago about cool climate and warm climate has gone out the bloody window, hasn't it?
100%.
So having the sea gives you a level of kind of consistency by the sea and a moderating climate, and you can have a longer growing season. Bordeaux, once again, has that little bit flatter, so the heat really affects it when it gets heat. But you've seen a lot through France this year with hail and stuff like that. You're not really seeing that in Tuscany. It's a little bit too far for it to get cold enough to hail on a regular basis.
Most of this is grown at, well, say altitudes, in inverted commas, so it averages between 150, 200 meters above sea level, up to about 600 meters above sea level. So it's not ridiculously high, but that does make a difference. Where this is grown, Maremma, it's about as far inland and still being part of Maremma as you can get. So it's still pretty warm, and I think you can tell that in there, the ripeness in the grapes themselves.
Absolutely. So these guys, they make this, but they also do some things in Tuscany a little step up, a little bit more magical, don't they? And this isn't, and when I say more magic, you've got to be careful because this wine is epic, and you can kind of go entry level and it gets a little bit lost, because you say entry level and you think it's entry level is £6 off the shelf in the supermarket. This one I say is absolutely not entry level. It's delicious, it's amazing, but they do have some more premium wines in their life, don't they?
Their namesake, the Petra, which is it's a proper Bordeaux blend. It's Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. It sits on the shelf for £60, £65. So it's not cheap, but the quality of the wine, if you're comparing it to Bordeaux, I know it's not really apples with apples, but I think you're getting more of a wine here for the price than you would do for your entry level Bordeaux. And
I think that's an important point. That you drink around the world and you talk about different things, and you can say, "Oh, this wine is Moldovan," and I'm just picking a country, so don't shout at me. That a country that's a little bit less known. But if I say, "Here's an £80 bottle of Moldovan Cabernet Sauvignon," people are, what? If I say, "Here's an £80 bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon,"
no one bats an eyelid.
No one bats an eyelid. And I think it's about, we've got to be able to pick up a glass of wine and assess it for what's in the glass. There needs to be less about who made it, where it came from. And, that history bit and the stories are great. But if this wine tastes of a quality, different style, but you say this quality is worth X amount, that's fantastic. They also make 100% Merlot, don't they? So, it's kind of, they've got some fun
100% Merlot, yeah, but that's eye-wateringly expensive, and they make about 3,000 bottles a year. So,
to be fair, I would bat both eyelids at £80 and then drink it deliciously.
Just asking for some opinions from people at home, because it's all too easy for us to say things when we work in the trade.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point.
Are we
almost blinded by
the flash?
Yeah, blinded by the flash. There you go.
There's a song in that.
There's a song in that.
No.
Why not?
Okay, can we have a little look at the tasting notes to see what everyone's got at home? Because I think this is a wine where we can jump into some levels of complexity that, we've got, and this is only 2020. There's not a lot of age on this, and we're starting to see the kind of like the tobacco and the coffee and those kind of tertiary, developmenty flavors are already there. There's a question there. What do you think about aging this? Is this something that you hang on to? Do you think it's going to get better? It's not going to get bad. It's not going to turn. But is it going to improve vastly over 5-10 years?
I would say 5 years. It's not going to get massively better. When you get to something that's a little bit more expensive, then absolutely, their single vineyard, the Petra stuff, 100%. That's something I'll sit on for 5-10 years. This was their sort of house wine, almost, dare I say it.
Oh, I wish that was my house
wine. They wanted to be approachable when it's young and drinks. It's not got a huge amount of oak on it that needs time to mellow down. 2-3 years, it will get better, but not something that I would buy a case of and
two-seat all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think this is something. If you get a case of it, you drink a couple and hold a couple and drink it in a year and go, oh, that's done what it's done.
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
It is, and we're seeing across the board more and more people who used to be very, very old school winemakers that go, make this, sell it, hold it for 10 years, then drink it. We're getting to a realization in the world that we're people, and once again, here's me with another world-class blanket statement. People want this. We're in the Amazon world and we want it right now. We want to prime that and have it tomorrow. I don't want to wait 20 years to open a bottle of wine. I'm going to buy the 20-year-old one and be done with it.
It's why I've got no wine at home that is
that's
older than 2020.
Yes, and that's why I have no wine at home and no money in my bank account.
I never had any to start with.
Lucky you.
I work in the trade.
Something like that. But yeah, so I think this is a fantastic wine. It really showcases that Super Tuscan was a movement, and you can take it one way or the other. You can either go, they were sneaky little buggers for pushing their way in when they shouldn't have, or they saw a niche in the market to make world-class wine and were failed by the system to not allow them to be part of the hierarchy because it didn't fit a rule that was made however many years ago. And you can take that whichever way you want to take it. But I think this is delicious wine. It does well, and we've got to remember that if something doesn't hit that Premier Cru status or that Grand Cru status or that DOCG or that Reserve or Grand Reserve, or these names that we put on wine, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a good wine. It just might not have fit the little box that people want to be.
Don't be fooled by the label.
Sometimes it can be absolutely horrific. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
These DOCs and DOCGs at the other end are designed to protect the consumer because you know what you're getting from it. But you can go a little bit outside the box, and if you find the right wine and drink something, you're fantastic.
Can I ask a question?
Caroline has a question.
So for all the people at home, how do you know the difference between an horrific and a really good IGT wine?
Open it and drink it. If you
it's that simple. So there's no way of telling other than knowing the producer.
Unless you know the producer, or the price is another thing.
Yeah, if you know the producer, you might see someone who's done something else, and they make let's go outside of Italy or wherever outside of Tuscany, they make a really good wine that is a Grand Cru Burgundy, for example, and then they do a little kind of like table wine, declassified village wine or something like that. What you've got to remember is these guys, if you've got someone who's making world-class wine, they have world-class facilities, yeah? And they wouldn't put their name on it if they didn't believe in it. So you can find some really good value, and you look at certain wineries, and I'm not going to list them off here. They make a certain wine, which is their premium, and they've got how many vineyards and all that kind of stuff. And the top 3 or 5% of their grapes will go into this wine. And then they'll have their second label. And that's not just that's like the 6% to 15%. And then the stuff that doesn't make the cut to put their own name on it, they'll sell to someone to make bulk wine that ends up in, Badger and Badger's wet wine label or whatever it is. So if you know a producer and they put their name on something and you like it, there's their super premium. And then you can drop down with that producer to a more affordable level of wine. Is it going to be as good? No, it's just not. It's a fact. But what you've got to remember at home, I think I use Chateauneuf de Pape and Côte de Rhône as a good example. That the Chateauneuf de Pape from a producer is going to be their premium wine. Okay, and say that Chateauneuf de Pape is 50 quid. And they make a lovely little Côte de Rhône at £15. Is the Côte de Rhône going to be as good? Maybe not. But would you rather have 1 bottle of Chateauneuf de Pape or 3 bottles of Côte de Rhône? And that is not my decision to make for anybody. That's your choice to go, yeah, I'd rather have 3 of them because it's not 3 times as good. Or, I actually want that stonking top Chateauneuf de Pape. Same with these guys, with Petra. You can turn around and go, let's get their top level Bordeaux at 3-4 times the price.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Do you want 2 bottles of that or do you want a case of this? And that comes round to personal preference, what your budget is or what it is. You want to drink good value. And what we hope with a lot of these wines is the price comes up and you go, wow, that's really good for 20 quid, 30 quid, 10 quid, 12 quid. And that's what we try and do. Look at these wines that give this value for money. And it's not always about having a 100 quid bottle of wine is better than a 50 quid bottle of wine. Sometimes it is. But would you rather have 100 quid bottle, or you can have 250 quid bottles? That goes a little bit further. So it's each their own. But that's what I'd say about where we're going. Anyway, I'm yabbering. We should Montalcino it. Montalcino, wine number 4.
Lovely.
So,
Muchas gracias.
so we are going a little bit south of Chianti. So we are in Montalcino, and the one I think most people have heard of is Brunello de Montalcino. That's one of our culty, classic, boombastic, want to put that in my cellar, tell all my friends about it wine. So Brunello de Montalcino is a particular clone of Sangiovese in a certain place. So, we talked about clones previous long bits and pieces, and I don't want to bore everyone, but do a quick recap that, we have grapes, which are Vitis vinifera, and then we've got the different species of vinifera. So we've got Pinot Noir, we've got Chardonnay, we've got Riesling, we've got Sangiovese. And then within Sangiovese, there's different types of Sangiovese that winemakers will pick because they ripen later, ripen earlier, are disease resistant, have bigger berries, have smaller yields, whatever that kind of is. And there's one particular clone that does very, very well in Montalcino that they use for Brunello del Montalcino. And Brunello has lots of rules and regulations. It's got to be aged for at least 4 years, 2 years at least in cask, and then the rest in bottle. If you are classed as what they call a traditionalist, it will be 3 years in cask.
Yeah.
And because of that time and that aging leads to a premium price, because they've got to grow it, keep it, store it, look after it, can't make any money on it for 4 years. And you're putting it in barrels, you're putting it in real estate. Rosso gives you the chance to get a feeling of Brunello.
That's a lovely way of putting it.
I know, I try. Anyway, so this is Celestino Pecci, and so the Rosso just needs to have 1 year in the barrel. So I don't want to say it's Brunello-like, because that's a horrible, horrible way to describe it.
No, but I think it gives you like like you said, a feeling of Montalcino and the area itself. And you have to bear in mind that this is south of Chianti Classico, and it's bloody hot there in the summer.
It is. This is big. It's bold. You look at the alcohol. You're at 15%. But what is killer about this wine? Take that little swirl and sip, and just let your mouth stop. Okay, everyone at home, just feel the acidity running through on that. For this big, bold wine in a hot, hot place where you shouldn't be allowed any acidity left. It should just be all fruit and jam. How amazing is the acidity in that wine? Oh, Caroline would like to know how amazing the acidity is in that wine.
I should pass that over. Sorry, Caroline.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You guys are much more important.
Well, we know that, but we don't want to be left out. So the Rosso is the younger style, but it doesn't always mean that it's lesser. And I keep going back to what's lesser, what's more, or what's more important. And why are you laughing at me?
You just said what's lesser, what's more.
What's that got to do with anything? Is that not words? Wow. Okay, Callum's going to talk. I'm just going to be quiet.
Oh God, here I go.
But yeah, go.
I think that with this wine, if you can leave it in your glass for 5 minutes. We had to do quality control before the start of this tasting, and that's now been open for 45 minutes, and
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a completely different beast to where it was when we first tasted it. It's got that real sort of like the tannins are really, really soft and almost that sort of like balsamic-y, tomatoey. I'm just thinking caprese salad. There you
Absolutely.
go. Snack
It's
watch.
got-
There we go.
There are snack chat.
Snack chat. Sorry.
It's like
I'm new.
It's like Snapchat.
I've got you.
It's
Yeah.
like-
Good.
See what
Good.
we did there?
It's very clever.
But once again, I think this is beautiful. I think this is powerful, yet elegant. It's got grapefruit. It's got tertiary character. You just look, from everything we've done so far, this is the most stuff on the tasting notes we've seen so far, because there's a lot of different things going on. But Rosso, it's a little bit lighter. So maybe that's the wine that you want for a particular occasion. And I think probably the nearest thing I can compare to that people might be maybe a touch more familiar at home is Rioja. And you can have a Crianza and you can have a Gran Reserva. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's what you got 18, 2 years of aging, you got 5 years of aging.
Yep.
Yeah. Not dissimilar. There's the right point to drink a Crianza for whatever occasion with the right food. You're just having a glass of wine. And there's the right point to have a Gran Reserva. You know, the Rosso, I would quite happily drink a glass of and just drink and hang out.
I think after the weather we've had today, this sort of slightly lighter style, you don't want something that's giving you a punch in the face or grabbing you by the tongue and going,
a brunette.
You know, you're drinking something.
Scraping the rake over there. But there's the right point for that wine as well. But what I think this does is it allows you to kind of get a feeling of what that would be, that style of Sangiovese, that style of grip, that style of balance, that style of elegance. And then you just ramp it up a notch, a bit like Valpolicella going into an Amarone kind of thing. That's probably your Italian.
That's your Italian equivalent. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think this is great. I think this is a fantastic wine, 2019 vintage, so a couple of years on it. But it's a beast. It's 15% alcohol.
Doesn't feel it though.
But it doesn't blow your head off, does it? It's not hot, even at 38 degrees or whatever we still are in here with the lights on. It's not mega, you know. I can use my classical B word and say that it's balanced, but that's where we are.
The tasting note there that interests me is bubble gum. Absolutely see where that person's coming from.
I do. If Alex Taylor was here, he would say whole bunch, Alex Taylor. That's what we're here for.
Is that where that tasting note is coming from?
It probably is. I'm not 100% sure how much whole bunch there is, but I would guess there's a little bit, maybe 20, 25%.
It's a bit stalky. I think you can get that sort of
like a little bit of bubblegummy, that little bit of greenness, that little bit of chewy tannin, but not. I don't think it's all whole bunch. I think probably 25, 30% ish.
It doesn't taste whole bunch at all.
So it's got a little bit that it's there. I'm sorry, we should go to the next one, but this is epic.
I'm enjoying this.
Really good.
Very much enjoying this.
Food with this?
Oh, I think something like I know something like a caprese salad, something like that. I think just it's
that has the exact same tasting notes as what you put through.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I just think it works really, really well. It's got the acidity's high, that freshness there. I think I saw on the tasting note that's almost like mentholy edge to it. That sort of freshness.
I want to check this out here because when I think caprese salad, I would think that's a white wine pairing, isn't it? You got mozzarella cheese, you got basil, you got tomato. Is that not kind of sit in the sunshine? And I'd not consider it as a red wine thing, but that's why it becomes an each of their own, isn't it?
I think red wine and cheese. A lot of people, when they're doing a cheese board, will sit there and either go fortified wine like port or red wine. So just because it's mozzarella and it's lighter, why wouldn't you put a lighter style of red wine? Maybe it's because I really want a caprese salad.
Yes, chef, is the answer.
Next time, if I get invited back.
Well, if YouTube turns up, you'll be back. But no, I think this is great. This is a little bit and Rosso di Montalcino is one of those styles that it gets left behind because it doesn't get shouted about enough. Once again, it's got the little label. It's DOC to be Rosso di Montalcino, and you'll see this. So for anyone who, I'll put it a little bit closer.
No, put it further away.
There, but this here. So when you are an Italian winery and you decide you want to play by the rules and you want to be DOC or DOCG classified, you have to send samples up to the regulatory board. They come down, they check you out, they make sure that you're doing everything that you do, and they send you these that you put around the neck of your bottles. You don't just go down to Tesco's and buy yourself a few DOCG labels. There's a huge amount of regulatory stuff that needs to happen. How long it's aged for, what the alcohol percentage is, whether there's a cork in the bottle in some DOCs. There's a lot of rules and regulations that people have to jump through hoops for that. And this is why a lot of wineries want to follow these DOC and DOCG rules rather than go the super Tuscan route, because they want to have that, because this is a guarantee of quality and what's going on. And people look at these labels, and if a wine doesn't have this label on it, they're not going to buy it.
Nice.
Nice.
Enjoyed that.
I'm glad you're happy. Anyway, we're going back to your portfolio. Going back to your portfolio, sir. What's wrong?
Stop flying. Well, anyway. Just can you say that the comments aren't working?
Sorry, it just looks like the comments aren't working, which is a great shame because we want to hear what all of you think about these wines.
So, moving on. We are back in Chianti, and this is Falsina. We are Chianti Classico Reserva. This is something that when I did my WSET educators, I had to do my exam was Chianti Classico and the difference between
Lucky
Chianti
you.
Classico and Chianti Classico Reserva. So here I am again to go through this. So what we've got Chianti Classico, which is you see the little label in here. We've got the DOCG on this one, which is the pinnacle of what's going on. So you've got IGT, IGT, which is Indication Geográfica Típica. You've then got DOC, which is Denomination de Origin Contralta, and then we've got DOCG, which is Denomination de Origin Contralta Garantita.
Well done. Look at that.
And as you go up, the rules about what you can and can't do become much stricter. So Chianti Classico DOC has to be a certain amount of Sangiovese, from that particular region. When you get up into Classico Reserva, they start talking about what, they make the yields a little bit stricter, and the alcohol has to be at least 12.5% and so on and so forth. So it's just another layer of rules on top to guarantee what the style you're going to get. So this is Falsina, and when you are a Chianti Classico, you get the little label on the back. You get what I like to call the massive black rooster.
That's very, very politically correct.
Very politically correct. But
I think Caroline can put up a photo of the big black rooster.
Massive black rooster.
Callum,
So you see that, and at the bottom you see the 1716, which was the year that it all came together. So you can talk a little bit about this if you would like, and we've probably also got a picture of the Falsina vineyard, so you can have a little look at that. It's beautiful, isn't it?
So Falsina it's a pretty big estate. It's 470 hectares. So if you think about the price of land, especially in Tuscany, it's quite expensive. So it's been a bit of a investment,
project,
shall we say. So it's bought in 66. Good year. Don't know why.
I remember that.
Yeah. By a guy called Domenico Pajali. It's a bit of a family affair, like with most things Italian and Tuscan. His grandson now, Giovanni, joined in 1990. His brother-in-law joined in the mid-70s to help grow the estate itself. And they make some of the best Chianti Classicos. So the Chianti Classicos region is about 100 square miles. So you're going from Florence to Siena. And it's where the original Chianti area was designated. So that's why it's called Chianti Classico. This is, I would say, unusual, but it's 100% Sangiovese. So when Jamie was talking about sort of the permissible grape varieties that you can use within Chianti, so you're allowed 10% white grape varieties to use in Chianti, which seems a bit counterintuitive. But yeah, this is 100% Sangiovese, and it's a little bit different to the normal Chiantis that you'll taste. So because of where the estate is, it's about as far south as you can get in Chianti Classico. It's a little bit warmer, so you get something that's a bit heavier. It's a bit more almost like we talk about the Montalcino in style, like Brunello.
Bit bolder, it's a little bit riper. I think what's really interesting about this though is you look at the as the crow flies difference from this Chianti Classico at the very, very south of the region to Rosso di Montalcino. You're not very far away at all.
No.
And the difference in style is immense, isn't it? This is This is light and fragrant and fruity, and this is punchy.
Yeah, it's punchy. I mean, it's 18 months. Oh no, so 12 to 16 months in Slavonian oak. So there you go. That's a new one. I don't know if you talk about Slavonian or different oak types.
We talked about different oaks, though. We
Different
don't
oak
get
types.
Slovenia on here.
So yeah, Slavonian oak it kind of gives that sort of mid ground between French and American, but doesn't cost the earth, which is great for something like this because it's means they're not charging a stupid amount of money for something which I think is incredibly good quality.
Yeah, we're just about to flick the slider on so you can get all your tasting notes in there, because I think there is a lot going on with this. You know, you've got this deep red cherry, you've got this spice, you've got so much, and every time you go back to it, something, and it's not mega, right? You take the Montecino that we just had 15% alcohol. Yeah, this is 13.5. It's manageable. But yeah, it's big, it's bold,
I'm getting almost like that sort of like black olive tapenade-esque hints to it. I mean, super savoury. And it's important to say that the guys at Felsina as well will only release the wines when they think it's ready to be drunk. So they hold stock for a minimum of 6 months prior to releasing it onto the open market. They want it to be enjoyable for you guys as much as it is for them.
And I think that's hugely important, because if a wine's released when it's not ready, we're not all sommeliers, we're not all wine gurus. We just want to drink a good bottle of wine. We want to open it up. And if we open it up, it's too tight, it's too tannic, it's too not ready, or basically it's just not ready, I'm not going to go back to it. I'm going to go, I want to open up a bottle of, we don't go and buy a piece of chicken and they say, okay, if you hold on to this chicken for 3.5 years, it will be delicious. So that's not how it works.
Dangerous as well.
Very dangerous. But wine's that one thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, we will sell it to you and please don't drink it for 10 years. It's like, oh, hold it for 10 years, give it to me when it's ready.
100%. 100%. And this for me, I'm just tasting it now and it needs food. It's not something that you could quite happily sit there and, sorry, Caroline.
It's okay. Right. The chat is happening without us, boys.
Oh, no.
I'm just reading through and we might have to go back for some questions.
That's fine.
And stuff.
That's fine.
You carry on and I'll catch up.
Okay.
You catch up the chat. So we're going to have a little bit more Felsina while Caroline catch up because this is delicious. We'll get the questions done from the chat and then we will dive into the
final wine of the evening.
The final wine of the evening. So Caroline's going to shout at us and we're going to talk, is what I say.
Okay, so I think we're going back to wine 4, if that's all right. There was a really good question.
Yep.
Is wine number 4 low tannin or is the tannin ripe?
So it's Sangiovese. Sangiovese definitely has tannin, but it's very well integrated. And because it does that little bit time of oak, it balances those tannins. So the way you can tell tannin, I've got the Felsina in the glass, but if you can do there's chew, there's whatever. If you just put your finger in and just rub a little bit on your gums like that, if there's a lot of tannin, you'll feel the side of your mouth come in like that. Have we got a glass? Yeah, I'm going to nick that one, and I'm going to go back to wine number 4 for you guys because I will then just.
Would that be a shame if you didn't pour some for me, Jamie?
Oh my word! These guests are hard work. Did you send your rider over? So if we go back, the tannin is definitely there. You can feel that chewiness, and you can feel that little bit of furriness in your throat. But where you've got this massive acidity at the back end, it just kind of wipes your tongue clean. It's almost like a squeegee just coming through. So you feel the tannins at the front palate and the mid palate, but you've got this lovely, lovely acidity that kind of cleanses the palate at the end. So you don't feel this kind of like big drying tannin. So it comes back to just this integration of the tannin, the balance, the palate, and it all comes together. So definitely tannin, but not aggressive.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they were ripe either. I'd say they're still really, really present. But like Jamie said, I think the acidity just will clean your mouth and your palate with that. So yeah, they're definitely there. And yeah, I can feel it on the front of my gums now as I rolled it over my teeth.
There we are.
Yeah, good question.
Okay, next question. I'm talking really loudly to be captured. Are Tuscan Bordeaux blend wines earlier drinking? Because I believe most Bordeaux 2020 are not yet bottled.
So That is a depends what you like question, isn't it? So if Alex was here as a winemaker, he would say it depends. So once again, here we come. General blanket statement, because I hate blanket statements. Tuscany, a little bit warmer, a little bit riper, easier to drink earlier. Bordeaux, a little bit cooler. There's more of this tannic structure that needs to work its way out. I think Tuscan wines that are well made in that Bordeaux style blend will have a longer life than the Bordeaux styles, because you have to get tertiary flavors, you've got to start with primary flavors to translate. You're going to have more primary flavors, so it's going to be much more drinkable right now because you're going to have these big fruity flavors. The middle might be a bit messed up because it's a bit confused, and then coming out the back, because it's had a lot of fruit, it's going to be able to develop these tertiary flavors. Bordeaux kind of just sits on this long path of development.
It's the 4 pillars of aging, isn't it? You need acidity, tannins, fruit, or sweetness to age a wine. And what you get in Tuscan wines especially is really high acidity and really high tannins.
And a lot of them you get high alcohol, so that adds as a preservative that allows it to run through. So it is a bit of a sharp-edged question, because I don't want to anti-Bordeaux and get shunned by the entire wine community for the rest of my life. But I think these Tuscany wines, where it's a little bit warmer, a little bit riper, they're drinkable now, but they've got ageability as well.
I think stylistically they're different as well. A lot of the big super Tuscans, and talk about the Flaccinellos, Tignanellos, Sassicailles, things like that, aren't just pure Bordeaux blends. They're called super Tuscans for a reason, because there is more often than not, a percentage of Sangiovese in there as well. So Sangiovese gives you higher acidity and slightly more sort of supple tannins to it. So I've said it earlier that you're not comparing apples with apples.
No. Our Alex Taylor, has commented saying it depends.
There we are. Well done. Well done, Alex Taylor.
Right, are you ready for another fab question?
Always.
Absolutely.
I like fab questions. This is getting exciting.
I mean, honestly, they've been going nuts, and I knew nothing about it.
After a disappointing start because of YouTube, we're getting back in the game.
Because of you.
I was, but I decided it's not fair.
Right. Say hello to Magda.
Hi, Magda.
Hi, Magda.
Lovely Magda.
In Wineland.
Yeah. Says, are they still fighting to change the appellation rules, or is it now considered as an interesting quirk, so it is what it is?
So there's always going to be, and the way it is, there's always the people who want to do it by the book and want to get this recognition. But it's so hard to change anything in wine. The levels of things you have to go through. You know, we go back to Bordeaux. Bordeaux have just allowed some blending grapes to come in. How long has Bordeaux been the 5 grapes of Bordeaux? Forever. How long has the 1855 classification been in place?
Well, since 1855.
Thanks for your help there. Answers on a postcard.
Unless you've got a lot of money and
your mouton.
Yeah,
exactly. So there's the people who want to do it for the right reasons, because they've got a particular microclimate and they want to be their own DOC and their own DOCG. Same way you're seeing a lot, new AVAs coming up in the USA because they've got a certain place. But it's so expensive and so hard. And for a single vineyard, a single winery estate to do something like that without all banding together, that the cost of what the wine's going to be absolutely ridiculous. They can't do it. So unfortunately, it's not a one man can change the world kind of thing. And you've got to get that. But it's like, what's the best way to explain it? I'm going to go American again. It's a bit like the NFL, okay? The NFL don't want to have promotion and relegation because they're all owned by these guys. And if you split into promotion and relegation, your team might be in the second tier.
Mm.
Yeah. The people who are already in the DOTs, the DOTGs, are quite happy to do that. They've got that. Why change it? We're happy with what we've got. And I'm not blanketing it. There's some phenomenal winemakers out there. There's some phenomenal chateaux, and they absolutely deserve what it is. But a lot of wine, it just sits on history, and there's a lot of that's the way it's always been.
It's got a good word of mouth as well. Sort of it's a really Yeah, it's a sort of double-edged sword, isn't it? That the purists don't want to ruin what they have worked so hard and what they see as almost their birthright.
Yeah, it's like, this is mine, this is my right to
Yeah.
have this, and my father did it, and my grandfather did it, and his grandfather did it. Why does this new guy think we should change it? It's always been okay. It's always been this
Yeah.
way. So,
Do you want some snack chat?
Yes, always.
Okay. There's some great pairings with wine number 4.
by the way, Alex isn't in Alsace. I think he's in Austria now. He's left Alsace.
Oh, for
He's
goodness sake.
he's doing a European tour. Maybe that's why it's wrong, because of his time difference.
Wow.
Snack chat, what we got?
Anyway, live chat's working for me again now, so
We're back in, yeah.
Right, but let's
Magda, the NFL is very simple. It's a wonderful sport and a wonderful game. We can do a online wine tasting does America, and we'll do a wine from each state.
No, that's not going to happen. Right, wine number 4, snack chat.
Yep.
Oh, they've gone fancy. What about a bit of venison fricassee?
I would, but it's a bit dear.
Oh
my God.
Or lovely Finn, who always does some good snack
pairing
chats.
Finn.
Pairing Finn. Beef teppanyaki.
Yeah, I can see that working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Between Sheffy here and Finn, you need to have your own snack chat and deliver.
Right. Okay. Well done, Alex. Good for you.
Yeah. Alex, please put in the comment if you actually care where Alex is right now.
Yeah, I don't.
Sorry, we're going off kilter here, but back to the snack chat. Back to the question.
Chris Howard.
Yeah.
Why do these wines command a premium over other Chiantis?
So it becomes, as you go up, you go Chianti, and you can have these. You can have Chianti Classico, and then you have Chianti Classico Reserva. So it becomes smaller areas, more premium, and it's the same with any. I think these guys are one of the best producers. They do it better than anybody else.
It's hand harvested as well.
And I think it is the same with anything. Why does this car command a more premium price? Because the effort and the thing that goes into it. I think sometimes we talk about wine and we go, oh, Shiraz is Shiraz. It's not. Chianti's not Chianti. There's lots of different people doing different things at different levels, different styles, to do what they do. And once again, it comes to when we look at the prices. You look at the price of this and you go, it's X amount. It does command a fairly premium price. But there's other Chiantis out there that are much more expensive, but also less expensive. And it depends where you are in the world that you want to.
Chris meant wine number 4. Sorry.
Oh, the Rosso.
The Rosso. Same thing, but just put Montalcino in my answer for Chianti. It's people make it, and there's also the thing. It's what people are willing to pay for it. You look at some of these, these cult wines from Australia or New Zealand or wherever. They put a price on it, and people think it's delicious, and they pay it. It's got a story behind it. They want to drink it. It is what it is. So there is the quality, absolutely, but there's also a massive supply and demand thing. That it's like, I made 500 cases of this, and someone wants to buy it. And
it's only a finite area as well. They're not expanding Montalcino.
Yeah. And if someone's happy to give them 600 quid a bottle, happy days.
Okay, do you want the last catch-up question?
Yes.
Yeah, please do.
Right, you've got 10 seconds each. Hannah wants to know what whole bunch is.
Alex, where are you? So, when you make wine, you pick the grapes, and you've got 2 options. You can either just chuck your bunch of grapes into your press, and that's whole bunch, or you can put it through a little piece of machinery that's called a crusher destemmer. That you put the grapes in the top, and they go through, and this machine pulls the stem off. Kind of like if you've ever taken the bits off rosemary, it's like that. So when you do whole bunch, it leaves everything in there. The grapes don't get crushed, and it's a slightly different style of fermentation. You can get this woodiness, this stalkiness, this bubblegumminess. And if you do crushed stem, you get a different style of thing.
Anything to add?
No.
Excellent. Right.
I took your 10 seconds.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we can move on to sharing some comments.
Take issues.
Is the wildfires that were happening in London today? Did you see that? There's wildfires in London today.
Milton Keynes.
Well, that's good then.
The simple answer is maybe.
So it depends. So wildfires, a lot of it depends where it comes in, and it depends where they are at harvest. A lot. Ban Taylor from the chat. So yeah, smoke taint. It really does depend on what point they are in harvest. Some people see these wildfires and they'll get their grapes in early. Some people, the wildfire will come through and then it will leave. A lot of it isn't actually about smoke getting into the grape. It's about ash and bits and pieces being left
On the skins
afterwards,
yeah.
on the skins afterwards. So it really depends at what point of the season you are, because you can't go out and like hose the grapes down, because otherwise they swell, they lose all their concentration. It's the same that you look at when we talk about things like whoever's on the island wines with the Greek tasting, we talk about Santorini and that flavour of salt and that salinity. That is literally because there is salt from the sea breeze on the grapes that goes into the vine. So California lost a lot last year. It was absolutely horrific. And these wildfires, it's not just about losing a vintage. It's people's livelihoods, their houses, their pets, their friends. It's horrific.
South Africa happens every year. Adelaide Hills.
Don't kick the
Sorry.
off.
Adelaide Hills in Australia was perfect example of that. We've got a producer we work with, Henschke, that didn't make any Pinot Noir for the last 2 years because they lost all their vineyards.
Yeah, it's
a real.
Shall we do some tasting?
Please do.
Let's have some tasting notes for this. Yeah, I like clove. Cloves in there. It's got this lovely spice, sour cherry leather, and we're looking at those complex flavors once again. Up front, yes, these dark fruits. I think blueberry's great. There's some plums and cherries in there. But yeah, I like the sour. I like the vanilla from the oak, the cedar, the leather, the plum jam is fantastic. I didn't see that. I said plum, and I've gone back to plum jam. It does have this bitterness. It's got this little bit of tannin. It's got this little bit of grip about it. It's an absolutely beautiful drop of juice.
I think that's why it needs food.
Yeah,
absolutely. Anyway, should we move to we're going back to Chianti. And we are doing Vin Santo. So, wine of saints of Chianti. So, Vin Santo is your desserty, fortified, nutty badger of a wine for Chianti. I absolutely love the style. I found out recently, though, I always thought Vin Santo was Italian. Always Italian. But original Vin Santo is Greek.
Yeah.
Greek from Santorini. But yeah, so this is the Bonacci family, and I just like the style. I like the style. I want to see loads of so Lismore. I'm going to jump into Lismore because Finn's put this up. And Sam O'Keefe, absolutely phenomenal winemaker, lovely person. Lost basically everything in a while. For a while, for the sheer fact the fire went through, lost that. Luckily, she'd moved a lot of her previous vintages out, so she had some. But what the really nice story was, and you worked with this wine for a while, so you can correct me when I'm wrong, is that the next year there was a lot of people who basically handed their grapes over to her and said, please make my wine. You've got nothing to do. You're a phenomenal winemaker. Do you want to help and make our wine?
Yeah, that's ostensibly what happens. She was 2 years into a new winery, and then it just all went up in smoke, quite literally. She's an incredible woman. Makes some unbelievable wines, and Tim Atkins just sort of gave her the nods, and she's now first growth in terms of his South African report. So
get him off.
Yeah.
No. Fantastic. I think there should be, loads of tasting notes on this. There's butter, there's spice, there's this nuttiness about it. It's not stupidly sweet, which I think is nice. like, you know, that smell of Madeira, that kind of, it's got that kind of almost like Vidello, or if we go to sherry, it's got this almost like Amontillado Oloroso kind of feel about it. I think it's really quite delightful.
But it's how long it takes to make as well.
How long does it take to make?
A long time.
Helpful.
Well, they dry the grapes for a long period of time, so that's where you're getting those sort of raisins, caramelly aromas from, and then it will sit in oak barrels for a long time as well, and that's where you're getting that sort of oxidation. You can see from the colour.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we're drinking 2010 vintage tonight, and it just shows that, you know, that's what I've got to do maths here. 12 years.
12 years.
12 years, and that's current release. It's, you know, it's not, they've held this for a while, and I've had, you know, a load of 2010 stuff tucked in the cellar for 10 years. This is what's available right now, and going forward, it's going, you know, so we're 12 years behind because it takes that long to put it. So the drying process, it's basically in these big hangers, Matt, and it's just that they try and blow all the air out so they don't get any kind of like fungal rot. And it's just warm, and it's just a natural drying process. It's not very different to Amarone, where they sit on the straw mats and they just let it dry out. And it can be anywhere from, you know, depending on the style, some of them leave it as long as 100 days to let it dry out to really kind of raisinate. And generally, it seems the longer you leave, the better. Well, the more intense the wine is. Not always the better, but, you know, that kind of, you know, the drier it is, the more concentrated, the more nuttiness you get, those kind of things.
You think about the composition of a grape, it's water and sugar is the juice that you get when you squeeze a grape. So by removing the water from it, you get concentrated sugar, so concentrated flavour, it's less diluted. So that's where you're getting that real intense sort of like burnt caramelly, raisiny flavours from.
Gone technical with a Passamiento.
Oh, there he is.
There we are, John.
I like that, John.
Come and host with us. But yes, look at that. Oh, peanut brittle. That is a wonderful answer. Peanut brittle, popcorn, basically everything you want to take to the movies.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Take that with the movies, yeah. Perfect.
Fit in your back pocket. Done.
Absolutely.
Peaches. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Peaches baked in Vinsanto with mascarpone.
That would literally be my ideal dessert.
Right, I tell you, we need to get this online wine tasting club on the road thing, because if we go on the road,
we get fed.
Well, and we don't have to deal with YouTube.
Ah, I thought you were going to say you again.
Him again. But there we go. Fantastic. So any final notes? Any final thoughts in the snack chat? Any of that kind of stuff? Because this is.
Can we just do another apology to everyone, because it has been a little bit gremlin-y tonight.
So yes, it has been horribly disjointed. So my apologies for that. For some reason, everything was running. YouTube decided it was giving up, and then the chat decided it was giving up without us touching anything. So huge apologies for that. So if you're new to us, very, very sorry. If you've been with us for a while, you're used to it. But no, it's what we'll do is we'll get this tidied up and get it up online. So if you want to go back through and see what we've done, that's great. And what's going on next? So next month, it's going to be great because it's not a live tasting. We've decided that we think lots of people are going to be on holiday. Alex is probably having another holiday or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of pre-recorded. So our Discoverers series is going to be South Africa, and then our Adventurers series is myself, Alex and Caroline are just picking some of our favourite wines that we want to share with you. So we've got that. And the Alex replacement was great. Get rid of the bit in brackets. Fantastic. So yeah, a massive thank you to Callum.
We haven't done who enjoyed it.
We haven't done
wines of the night.
Oh yeah, so let's put up wines of the night so we can vote on wines of the night while I badger along for it. So you can vote, you can drag them around and all that kind of stuff. You're only saying that because you know he's in the chat.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Magda's going to come and host soon as well.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
So she can host with you, and I'll have a night off.
Yeah, right,
That'd
Jamie.
be epic. So we're gonna do Ian, your bard. But there we go. So as soon as we've done wine of the night, Liz, we will get the prices up so we can do wine of the night. The one thing I would like to say for those who haven't joined us for a little while, last month myself and Alex disappeared to Reading for a night out at the Students' Union of all places for the Startup Business Awards, and we won the Startup in Manufacturing and Engineering. So he's not here, but he's in the chat, and I just want to put a massive congratulations to him because he's the guy that invented this packaging, these boxes, the stress that went with it, and to be recognised nationally as a Startup of the Year for manufacturing, not just in wine, but in any kind of thing, is fantastic. So congratulations, to me for putting up with him, but for inventing it. So absolutely massive congratulations to Alex, because without him, we wouldn't be doing the fun stuff like this.
Well done, mate.
Thanks. He's also here. But how are we doing for wine of the night? Have we got some votes in? What do we got? What do you think wine of the night is before you see it? What was your wine of the night?
I really like that.
Pick something from your own portfolio.
Yeah, of course. What sort of question is that? I really like the Ebo, the Petra. I thought that was showing really well tonight. But if it wasn't mine, then the Rosso. Although the Rosso was beautiful, showing really well.
I think what's been interesting about tonight is each wine is vastly different. It sings its own story. It does its own thing. I love the Felsina. I think that's phenomenal. But I think when we see the prices come up, I think the Ebo value for money is the best on the board. So let's see. Let's have a look. See what the winner is tonight. There we are. Look at
the Felsina. Fantastic.
Felsina Chianti Classica Reserva. So congratulations to those guys. But I think I just need to pop it out there that we put this vote up for favourite of the night, and there's always going to be a wine that comes last in this vote. What I'm hoping is we've not put something out there that you go, I want to pour that down the sink and go, I never want to have that again. But hopefully it's the right wine at the right time, and you go, well, if I'm going to sit outside in the sunshine, the Felsina Chianti Classico Reserva might not be the wine for me. If I sat outside at lunch today, probably not the wine for me. But there we are.
Right.
So
I'm a bit worried about this one tonight.
No, that's fine. And so we're putting up if you've had a good night. We know we're messing things up. We know YouTube didn't work. Hey, if it's been horrific, please send us an email. Let us know what we need to do to make you happy, because that's what it's all about. Like, we think the wines are fantastic. When we get the show right, I think we have a good time. We just need to hire a technical person. When we get a proper technical person in. Okay, so all right. So Caroline is classing herself as a very technical person. So therefore, everything that goes wrong, her personal phone number is 07.
No.
Give her a call. Give her a WhatsApp. I like that. Sicily tasting was the best overall. That's good to hear. Let's pop the prices up for everyone, Caroline, so we can see where we're at, and then we can let these people go on their merry way. So as we see, the Air less than 20 quid is, I think, fantastic. We've got some super premium wines on there today. Some really cool stuff. But lots of fun, lots of great wine. Once again, a massive thank you to Callum.
Thank you for having me.
Are you going to come again?
Yeah.
He'll come again.
If you'll have me back.
And once again, if you know anyone that you think should come and host, it's always nice to mix it up. So from me, from Caroline, from Callum, from everybody, from Alex in the chat, you have a horrible night. But everybody else, have a wonderful night. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.